rice and say, why are you importing rice? And we have got rice we farm rice. But Mr. Speaker, the farmers of Moya and Ahero, they don't have a voice. They don't have the deep pockets. They don't have the money. They don't have the kind of checkbooks as would be required to create the kind of noise that has been heard in the media. Only this item, 125,000, out of which, Mr. Speaker, the amount of edible oil that has landed in this country is only 3,000 metric tons. That is close to 170,000 jerrycans of 20 liters that are used in our homes. So only 170,000 families is what have benefited from what has been imported by KNTC. Mr. Speaker, when we started this importation, there were even cartoons in the media. There were a lot of jokes and memes going around in social media about the price of edible oil. It was said to be among the most expensive things to buy. By that time, Mr. Speaker, 1 liter of edible oil around November, first week of December, when I addressed the Kenya Association of Manufacturers about this issue, it was 400 shillings per kilo. And that time, Mr. Speaker, on my first day of work, speaking at KICC, after being sworn in, I told the edible oil industry that this is not acceptable and this is not sustainable. And I asked them to do whatever it takes to ensure that we have a level playing field, and also to ensure that the price of edible oil comes down. Mr. Speaker, I instructed KNTC to import edible oil with a target that 1 kilo of edible oil would retail at 250 shillings. Mr. Speaker, because of only 170,000 jerrycans, the price of edible oil today has dropped to 218 shillings per liter, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that is despite the dollar, which by the time I gave that instruction, the dollar was going for 125 shillings. Today, the dollar is hovering in the region of 140. Yet, Mr. Speaker, the price of edible oil has dropped to 218 shillings, to the relief of so many Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, what is the problem with the edible oil industry? The problem with the edible oil industry is that 55 million Kenyans depend on 5 companies. If 5 companies collude and they decide to poison, all of us are going to be in very deep trouble. These 5 companies, Mr. Speaker, are Bidco, and I'll talk about Bidco later. There's a company known as Kappa, a company known as Pwani Oil, a company known as Menengai, and a company known as Golden Africa. These companies, they engage in what they call their own version of value addition. What?
Senator Chute, you know you cannot raise a point of order against the CS.
Leading the House. We don't have only 5, we have more than 5, Mr. Speaker. Let him do his research well and come back with the...
Senator, Honorable CS, the Senator from Marsabit has just stated that the information you're giving to the Senate is inaccurate, in that you're giving us a list of companies that is not exhaustive. So could you make that clarification as you move?
Mr. Speaker, as a minister in charge of industry, I am the one who licenses manufacturers. And all manufacturers has to get something called SKU from the Kenya Bureau of Standards, which is in my ministry. I would be happy, Mr. Speaker, to get any further information with the specific SKUs from the Honorable Senator Chute, so that I can be guided. But let me say this. What do these companies do? Mr. Speaker, These are companies who are said to be engaging in the business of manufacturing or value addition of crude palm oil.
Honorable CS, I listened carefully to the question asked by the senator for Laikipia. And I don't see the relevance of that response to that question asked by Senator Kinyua. I think for the last 5 minutes you've done very well, going straight to responding to that question. But what you are now proceeding to do, I do not see the relevance to that question that has been asked. So if you're done responding to the question by Senator Kinyua, you may yield and allow other senators to pose further questions.
Mr. Speaker, I stand guided. And to the specific question of Senator Kinyua, the reason that there is the outcry in the media is that, in my honest opinion, is noise sponsored by these 5 companies which I have stated, which have continued to enjoy monopoly, which are using the profits they have made historically to fight our efforts to bring down the cost of living, and who have got a lot of money because they enjoy this monopoly status. Because if an ordinary person wants to bring in the same product that these companies are doing, any other company is wrapped with import duty of 35%, whereas these people pay 0 in terms of duty. So, Mr. Speaker, the direct nexus between the answer that I've given and the question asked by the Senator Kinyua is that the media is working for these cartels who want to lock out everybody, want to lock out the no ordinary person, the hustler, who want to keep the prices high as it has been historically, and they will do anything possible to scuttle any need to move.
Honorable CS, you're making very grave allegations. And the rules that apply in this House are that you should be able to substantiate any allegation that you make before this House. One of the allegations you're making is that there are 5 companies that run like a cartel. Secondly, that these companies are sponsoring headlines. Honorable CS, those allegations, if we cannot prove them, kindly drop them. If you can prove them, go ahead and give us factual basis of those allegations.
Mr. Speaker, last Sunday, I was engaging a journalist who wanted clarification about some of the issues that we are discussing here today. Mr. Speaker, the name of that journalist is Gerard Andai from Daily Nation and Business Daily. And I asked him, Mr. Andai, I find it difficult to continue giving you answers because even when we provide the correct information about edible oil, you continue to write negative stories. That gentleman from the Nation, Mr. Speaker, told me, I have received from Ms. Pamela Mutua, the CEO of KNTC, all the answers and the trends of the downward spiral of edible oil prices. But every time I write the correct truth, my editors tell me that all they want is a negative story. Mr. Speaker, that conversation did not happen verbally. That conversation happened over WhatsApp, so I have got evidence to substantiate. I submit, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, now, Honorable CS and Honorable Members, statements in the media are inadmissible and they do not speak to the accuracy of any matter that can be discussed in this House. And therefore, as you rise to ask supplementary questions, don't refer to any statement in the press.